Hi there. Well, as promised, today I'm going to show you how to make pretty designs in your knitting, maybe for washcloths, things like that. So here's one I did, and hopefully you can see. It's a little girl with a bonnet and a shawl and a little skirt. So you can do all kinds of different patterns, and all you need is a knit stitch and a purl stitch. So I'm just going to raise you guys up there. So we're going to review how to do a knit stitch and a purl stitch first. And later on, I'm going to show you where I got these patterns. There's tons of patterns online. And I'm going to show you where I got mine. But first of all, let's review. Okay, so knit stitch. I'm going to take my right hand needle and put it in the stitch behind the left hand needle. See? Now my yarn is also at the back. See where my yarn is? So my yarn's at the back. And when I'm going around the needle, I'm going to think of it like a clock. So my yarn is going to go around the right hand needle only. So we're going to go 12, 9, 6, 3, and back to 12. So what you want to be careful of is not getting it caught around the left hand needle. Okay, so you can see, you may be able to see, you've got it coming around. Now, got our X and tension. So I mentioned tension before. Yarn in 3 fingers, and then you're going to just hold it with this finger, and that helps with the tension. You can even hold your yarn in your thumb because you want to make sure that your new stitch doesn't come off your right needle when you bring your left hand needle up and over to the back. Now that went pretty quick, so I'll show you again after. And then out. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the back of the stitch. 12, 9, 6, 3, and then think of this as a T. Hold your yarn downwards. The T is going to go all the way up to the top, over to the back, and then off. Okay, so when you're making your knit stitch, think of your 2 needles as standing side by side, and then they come apart, so you can have them side by side when the right needle goes into the back. 12, 9, 6, 3, around the right hand needle only, over the top and off. Okay, so I'll do a few more. Oopsies. And then, see, sometimes what can happen is part of the old stitch, like the yarn strands, the fibers get caught. So you want to make sure you have everything in its place where it's supposed to be. So the knit, think of it as the knit goes in the front door and out the back door. In the front door, oopsies, out the back door. And again, you don't want to go through between the stitches, right? You want to go right into this hole. So together, see they're in the same loop. Right hand out the back, counterclockwise. T comes up, over, off. And there we go. And I got one more to go. Maybe I have 2 more. I'm going to make it 1 though, because this is just for demonstration. So I'm knitting 2 together, perhaps, maybe not. Oops. Take that off because I don't like it. There. Okay, so now just ignore that. Don't worry. It's just a demo. Purl. What you want to think of with your pearls is pearls always go in the front. You wouldn't wear your pearls on your back, would you? You wear them in the front. So put your needles like this, like a straight line. So you know before you had them side by side. Now you're going to have a straight line. Your right hand needle goes in the front and stays there. One thing I forgot was that you want to make sure your yarn is in the front. So this is the first stitch, so it doesn't really count. So I'm just going to do it really quick so you can see. So before, with your knit stitch, it was in the back. Now your yarn is in the front. So we're going to put it in. And now your right hand needle stays in the front. All right. So it's not going through the back door. It came through the front door. It's going to go out the front door. But what stays the same is your clock direction. So 12, 9, stop at 6 or 3, I guess 3-ish. Okay. Oh, and you see I got it over the left hand. We don't want that. And then now your left hand needle is behind. So the crosswise of the T is in the behind. So that means it's going to come to the front now and off. All right. So straight line, keep your needle in the front. 12, 9, 6. Over the top, left hand is now in the front and off. Again. Clockwise, tension over here with this finger, and off. Okay, so that's your purl. So you got your knit and your purl stitch. So a lot of washcloths have a border that's called the moss stitch. Oh, I also wanted to make a quick note. If you see something that says garter stitch, that just means knit stitches, all knit stitches. They gave it, that name. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you the moss stitch. So, you can either, you're going to follow your pattern, but you're going to go knit, and then bring your yarn to the front, and then you're going to purl. Bring it to the back, and make sure you don't wrap it around your needle, because then you're going to end up with an extra stitch. So it's very important when you get to the end of a row to count your stitches. Make sure that you have the right amount of stitches. So we're just alternating back and forth between the knit stitch and the purl stitch. And usually patterns will call for 4 to 6 rows of a moss border. Some patterns say 6 at the top and the bottom and then 4 along the edges, but I like them to match. So if it has 4 rows of moss stitch around the borders on the side, why not around the top too, right? Because then everything's nice and symmetrical. So yeah, so all I'm doing is back and forth. Now, the important thing with the moss stitch is it can turn into another stitch if you're not careful, called the stockinette stitch, and you don't want that. So when you're done, see, like I just totally lost track of what I was doing. So it could, yeah, see? Don't talk and knit at the same time. Knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. We're going to imagine that this is, well, anyway. Then we're going to purl. So if you end on a purl, and your pattern will tell you this, so don't worry, but just so you know, your stitches have to line up, okay? So if you end on a purl for the moss stitch, you start again on a purl, okay? Now you see I did another little thingy hoop, it doesn't matter. So if you end on a purl, you start on a purl. You don't start on a knit, because if you do, it's going to turn into a different stitch. But anyway, in any case, moss stitch. Okay, moving on. Try to keep this as fast as we can. So here's a little gadget, because when you are doing these patterns, there's rows and rows and rows. And if you're busy, or you could easily lose track. Well, I easily lose track. So I use this little counter. There's all kinds of different counters. I don't think you can see, but it's got numbers on it, and then you can just change the number as you go. Unfortunately, it's not coming into focus. Then we have these little markers, and these, the way that there's different ways of using these, I'm going to show you how I use them for beginners, because I think it really works well. So now I'm going to show you up here. I've got my pattern on the TV just so I can show you what it looks like. Oi! And that's chrisknitsblogspot.ca. So that's where you can get a lot of nice patterns for free. So thank you, Chris Knits. And the purple one there with the house and the tree, that's the one I'm working on right now. So you can see there's all the rows and what you're supposed to do. So I am on row 16. So what I do is I take these markers and mark off where I'm supposed to change a stitch, because the changed stitches are what gives you the design. So let's count where I am. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So then I look at my pattern. Okay, so this stitch here is the last in a row of 13 knit stitches. So I'm going to, knit that. Now I get to this black marker, and that means I have to change what I'm doing. So I take my black marker off. Okay, what is this? 2. So I look at my pattern, and it tells me to, what is it telling me? Oh yeah, purl 1. So I bring my yarn to the front. I purl 1, and if you're a really beginner, you can mark them all off. Bring this to the back, and then knit 1. That's what the pattern is telling me to do. Okay, so I get to another one, take it off, look at my pattern, it's telling me purl 2, bring my yarn to the front, purl 1, purl 2. Okay. All right, I'm at another marker. It says knit 1, put my yarn to the back, knit 1. And it's really important when you're doing this to make sure that you stick on the same row, because there's so much writing you can get confused. So here it says, let's see if I can show you. It says row 16, see where the parentheses are? P1, K1 times 3. So that means you purl 1, then you knit 1, and you do that 3 times. So that's what I'm going to do. Yarn to the front, purl 1, knit 1, purl one. Knit one. Now, it's really a good idea to use cotton yarn when you're making washcloths. I don't think I said this already because it's durable. And I like to use white so that you can bleach it, or you can dye it maybe if you want to. But you can also use different colors. We're not going to go over that today because I just want to keep this as simple as possible. All right, so I'm going to knit one. Row 16. Okay, so I'm going to stop now and look at my pattern because I want to make sure 2, 4, 6, 8 that I'm not making any mistakes. So that's the other thing. So you want to make sure you're not making any mistakes, and you're going to count your stitches at the end. And that's basically it. So when I'm done this, I will post a picture. And I also wanted to mention that I went to the Signature Craft Fair and I got this beautiful yarn bowl. So shout out to the Windmill of Provence. This woman makes beautiful stuff. And no, I just met her that day, but I just love it so much. So beautiful. And also, if you like the music, it is by Phil Coulter, and it's called Scottish Tranquility. So I think I went over everything. So happy knitting, and let me know if you have any questions, okay? Try and stay warm this weekend, guys.